Loyalty to God. Elijah. 1. Outline the factors that led to the widespread of idolatry in Israel during the time of Prophet Elijah. KCSE Paper 1 2019 3a. 1. The Israelites were attracted to the Canaanite gods whom they could see. 2. The Israelites wanted to be like other nations. 3. The Israelites intermarried with foreign wives who brought their gods. 4. There was a change of lifestyle from being pastoralists to doing agriculture, which made the Israelites turn to the god of fertility. 5. Jeroboam introduced idol worship in the northern kingdom by setting up places of worship at Dan and Bethel. He denied people the chance to go to Jerusalem. 6. Israelites were defeated in wars which made them turn away from Yahweh. 7. Kings such as Solomon and Ahab allowed the worship of idols. 8. The great influence of the Canaanite religion on the people of Israel led to the spread of idolatry among the Israelites. 9. There was syncretism whereby the Israelites worshipped Yahweh alongside other gods. 10. The Israelites worshipped Yahweh in the magnificent Canaanite temples. 11. The Israelites ignored the commandments God gave them through Moses. They didn't destroy all the cultic objects and temples used in the worship of Canaanite gods. Canaanite religion. 2. Outline the characteristics of the Canaanite religion. KCSE Paper 1 2007 3a, 2018 3a. 1. Symbols were used to represent gods and goddesses. 2. Temple prostitution was practiced. 3. There were many places of worship. 4. Sacrifices were offered to the gods. 5. There was a celebration of festivals and feasts. 6. There were gods and goddesses. 7. It comprised a family of gods. 8. It was a nature religion. 9. It was a cyclic religion. 3. Explain the characteristics of the Canaanite religion. 1. Symbols were used to represent gods and goddesses. Different gods had different symbols that were used to represent them. 2. Temple prostitution was practiced. The barren couple would have sex in the temple and initiate Baal and Ashtorite wife. And this would result in pregnancy. 3. There were many places of worship. The Canaanites used to worship their gods in different places like temples, under sacred trees and on top of hills. 4. Sacrifices were offered to the gods. There was an offering of human and animal sacrifices to the Canaanites' gods. 5. There was a celebration of festivals and feasts. The Canaanite religion comprised of feasts like the Feast of Unleavened Bread, a Feast of Weeks, a Feast of Ingathering, etc. 6. There were gods and goddesses. The Canaanites' gods were both male and females. 7. It comprised a family of gods. The Canaanites' gods could be related through marriage, that is, a god and goddess that are husband and wife respectively. 8. It was a nature religion. The main aim of worshipping the gods was for them to control the forces at the work in nature, particularly in agriculture and the cycle of the seasons. 9. It was a cyclic religion. The seasons were repeated in contrast to Yahwehism in a linear manner. Religious schism. 4. Outline ways in which Jeroboam contributed to religious schism between Judah and Israel. KCSE Paper 1 2007 3b. 1. He made 2 golden calves to be worshipped by the people that were to represent Yahweh. 2. He ignored Jerusalem as a center of worship. He denied people a chance to go and worship there. 3. He built 2 rival places for worship, Dan and Bethel. 4. He built other places of worship, e.g. hilltops. 5. He was copying the practices of the surrounding nations. 6. He appointed priests from ordinary families to serve Yahweh. Didn't chose from the tribe of Levi. 7. He made the Israelites offer sacrifices to the golden calves he had made. 8. He instituted religious festivals, feasts in the month of his choice. 9. He burnt incense at the altars of idols. 5. Outline how King Ahab contributed to the spread of idolatry in Israel. 1. He married Jezebel, a Phoenician princess, foreigner. 2. He allowed Jezebel to import her false religion Baalism to Israel. 3. He welcomed the false prophets of Baal and Asherah to Israel. 4. He built high places and temples for the worship of Baal. 5. Due to Jezebel's influence, he started worshipping Baal himself. 6. Through Jezebel's influence, he declared Baalism a state religion a must for all. 7. He permitted Jezebel to hunt down and kill Yahweh's prophets to advance Baalism. 8. He gave the false prophets of Yahweh like Elijah. 9. He paid them with money from the state treasury. 10. Jezebel campaigned to replace Yahwehism with Baalism. 6. State the effects of idolatry in Israel during the time of Prophet Elijah. KCSE Paper 1 2013 3b. 1. The Israelites mixed with the worship of Yahweh and Baal syncretism. 2. False prophets and prophetesses emerged. 3. Prophets of Yahweh were persecuted. 4. High places of worship were constructed for the worship of false gods and goddesses. 5. There was a 3.5-year drought as a punishment from God. 6. Human sacrifices were offered to gods and goddesses. 7. The worship of Baal was made a state religion Baalism. 8. The Israelites were banished to exile as punishment from God. 9. There was corruption and social injustice in the society. 10. God raised his prophets to help bring his people back to the covenant way of life. 11. Yahweh was worshipped as one of the gods' apostasy. 12. There was increased cultic and temple prostitution. Gods were turned into places of worship for Yahweh without removing the Canaanite symbols. 13. The Canaanite agricultural calendar was adopted by Israel. 14. The names of the Canaanite gods were used to refer to Yahweh. 15. Altars of Yahweh were destroyed.
Jezebel did so.
16. The Canaanite sacrificial system was incorporated into Israelite worship. 17. Parents began naming their children after Baal. 18. It led to the rejection of the covenant way of life. Mt. Carmel contest. 7. Describe Mt. Carmel contest in 1 Kings 18 verses 19 to 41 KCSE Paper 1 2008 3a, 2019 3b. Elijah called for a contest at Mt. Carmel to determine whether Yahweh was the one to be worshipped or it was Baal. The prophets of Baal agreed to take part in the contest. The parties involved were to be Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Each party was to offer a sacrifice to God and then call upon their God. The God who would answer by fire was the real God who was to be worshipped by the people of Israel. The prophets of Baal were the first to offer their sacrifice. They prepared an altar and started praying to their God. They shouted and danced around the altar. They told their Baal to answer them, but there was no answer. By midday, Elijah started mocking them by telling them that maybe their God was preoccupied, busy on a trip, or asleep and had to be awakened. Baal failed to answer his prophets. He did not send fire to consume the sacrifice. It was now the turn of Elijah. He started by repairing the abandoned altar of Yahweh. He then set up 12 stones to represent the tribes of Israel. He poured water on the wood until it filled the trench. He then prayed to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Immediately after his prayer, there came a supernatural fire from heaven that consumed the sacrifice. The Israelites marveled at the miracle and said that the Lord is God. Elijah then condemned the prophets of Baal. The prophets of Baal were killed. Elijah declared that the drought that had lasted for 3.5 years would come to an end. 8. Outline the circumstances that led to the Mt. Carmel contest. 1. Israelites had turned away from the covenant way of life. 2. Yahweh's altar at Sheldon had been broken down. 3. Prophets of Yahweh had been persecuted and killed. 4. King Ahab and his foreign wife Jezebel had promoted idol worship in Israel. 5. Syncretism had taken root in Israel. 6. The 3 years drought had caused great suffering to Israel as a nation. 7. There were 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah serving in the king's palace and promoting the worship of Baal. 8. There was a need to prove between Yahweh and Baal who was the true God. 9. State how Elijah fought against false religion in Israel. 1. He openly condemned King Ahab and Jezebel for promoting Baalism in Israel. 2. He prophesied a 3.5-year drought to Israel as a punishment from God for turning to idolatry. 3. He called for a contest at Mt. Carmel to prove whether Yahweh or Baal was the true God. 4. He prayed to God to send fire to prove that he is the true God. 5. He rebuilt the altar of Yahweh to restore the worship of Yahweh. 6. He challenged the Israelites to choose who to worship, Yahweh or Baal. 7. He prophesied the end of the drought to prove that Yahweh is the Lord of nature. 8. He appointed Elisha to succeed him in the prophetic fight against idolatry. 9. Elijah killed the prophets of Baal who spread idolatry as a way of showing they had no place in Israel. 10. He prophesied the death of Ahab and his family who were instrumental in promoting idolatry. 10. Outline the teachings about God from the Mount Carmel contest. 1. God is the only true God / universal God. 2. God is more powerful than false gods. 3. God answers prayers. He is a faithful God. 4. Only God should be worshipped. 5. God provides. 6. God saves his people. 7. God is a just God / he punishes evil. 8. God works through human beings. 9. God is a jealous God. 10. God is omnipresent. 11. God wants human beings to obey him. 12. God is a moral God. 11. Describe the story of King Ahab and Naboth's vineyard. Describe the incident in which King Ahab took Naboth's vineyard. KCSE Paper 1 2023a. Naboth had a vineyard in Jezreel beside the palace of King Ahab. Ahab told him to give him the vineyard because it was next to his palace and he would give him a better vineyard or money. Naboth rejected the offer. He told Ahab that he could not give the vineyard since he had inherited it from his fathers. Ahab went to his house disappointed. He went to his house and lay on his bed and could not eat food. Jezebel came and asked Ahab what had happened. Ahab told her what had happened. Jezebel wrote a letter in Ahab's name and sent it to the elders and nobles of Israel. She had stated that Ahab had cursed God and the king. The punishment was stoning to death. Naboth was stoned to death. God sent Elijah to go to the house of Elijah to declare the punishment that they would receive because of their sins. 12. Outline the commandments that Ahab and Jezebel broke in the story of Naboth's vineyard. 1. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. 2. You shall not kill. 3. You shall not steal. 4. You shall not covet your neighbor's property. 13. From the story of Naboth's vineyard, explain the commandments which King Ahab and Queen Jezebel broke. KCSE Paper 1 2010 3a. 1. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. They accused Naboth falsely. 2. You shall not kill. They led to the death of Naboth. 3. You shall not steal. They stole Naboth's vineyard. 4. You shall not covet your neighbor's property. They coveted Naboth's vineyard. 14. Explain the sins that Ahab and Jezebel committed in the story of Naboth's vineyard. 1. They accused Naboth falsely. They broke the 9th commandment. 2. They led to the death of Naboth. They broke the 6th commandment. 3. They stole Naboth's vineyard. They broke the 8th commandment. 4. They coveted Naboth's vineyard. They broke the 10th commandment. 15. State ways in which King Ahab broke the covenant way of life. 1. He coveted Naboth's vineyard. 2. He allowed his wife to bear false witness. 3. He had Naboth killed. 4. He stole Naboth's vineyard. 5. He broke the Jewish law on the ancestral land. 6. He failed to protect the weak and poor as demanded in the Mosaic Law. 16. Identify ways in which the Israelites practiced idolatry during the time of Prophet Elijah. 1. They worship many gods. 2. They made images and symbols to represent the gods and goddesses. 3. They worshipped false gods. 4. They offered both human and animal sacrifices to the gods. 5. They practiced apostasy. 6. They performed fertility rituals to ensure the continued fertility of the land. 7. They practiced temple prostitution. 17. State the forms of punishment prophesied by Elijah to King Ahab and Queen Jezebel after taking Naboth's vineyard. 1 Kings 21 verses 17 to 29. KCSE Paper 1 2010 3B, 2023b. 1. Death of King Ahab would be the same place / valley of Jezebel like Naboth. 2. Evil would be upon Ahab. 3. God was to take away the prosperity of Ahab / his rule would come to an end. 4. Dogs would lick the blood of Ahab. 5. All the male children free slaves would be cut off. 6. The lineage of Ahab would be wiped out. 7. The dogs would eat anybody who belongs to the family of Ahab who died in the city. 8. The birds of the air would eat all who die in the field. 9. The dogs would eat the body of Jezebel. 18. Outline the lessons can Christians learn about social justice from the story of Naboth's KCSE Paper 1 2013 3C. 1. Christians should use their position in leadership to acquire wealth justly. 2. Christians should protect the poor against corrupt leaders. 3. Christians should safeguard property received through inheritance / according to the law. 4. Christians should guide others wisely. 5. Christians should execute justice / protest rights / freedoms of citizens. 6. Christians should condemn all forms of injustice in society. 7. Christians should champion / fight for the rights of the weak in society. 8. Christians should avoid God's punishment. 19. Identify the consequences of evil in society today. 1. Death. 2. Diseases. 3. Hatred among people. 4. Accidents. 5. Embarrassments. 6. Poverty. 7. Environmental pollution. 8. Family conflicts. 20. Give reasons why killing is condemned in traditional African communities. KCSE Paper 1 2010 3C. 1. Life is sacred and therefore should not be destroyed by anybody. 2. It brings hatred / revenge / ill feeling among members of the community. 3. It destroys the continuity of the family / community. 4. It brings poverty / denies one the chance to take part in community development. 5. It breeds suspicion / fear / anxiety. 6. It destroys harmony / undermines good relationships in the community. 7. It creates sadness / misery / sorrow for the relatives / community. 8. To avoid being banished / excommunicated by the community. 9. To avoid curses / being haunted. The content in this audio file is derived from Excellence in CRE Form 1, 2, 3, and 4 revision book. To acquire the hard copy at Kenya shilling 1,000, feel free to contact Cyrus through 0720-872-58221. Outline the signs that God used in the mission of Elijah to prove that he is the true God of Israel. 1. The 3.5 years drought period in Israel came to pass. 2. Elijah raised the son of the widow of Zarephath. 3. Fire from heaven consumed the sacrifice at Mt. Carmel. 4. There was a great storm that marked the end of the drought. 5. Yahweh protected Elijah from the wrath of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel when God's prophets were being killed. 6. God destroyed the soldiers who had been sent to capture Elijah. 7. Elijah was fed by ravens at the brook of Cherith. 8. Elijah was provided with bread and water by an angel on his way to Mt. Horeb. 9. God appeared to Elijah at Mt. Sinai in a small voice. 10. Elijah did not die, but he was carried to heaven on a chariot of fire. Challenges Elijah faced. 22. State the challenges faced by Prophet Elijah in Israel. KCSE Paper 1 2018 3b. 1. He had to address the rampant corruption and injustice. 2. He had difficulty convincing the people that he was a true prophet of God. 3. He had to deal with the widespread idolatry and apostasy among the Israelites. 4. There were religious persecutions. 5. He faced opposition and threats from Jezebel and Ahab. 6. He lived in fear after pronouncing 3.5 years of drought. 7. There were false prophets of Baal and Asherah who promoted false religion. 8. He had to face King Ahab and challenge him for misleading the people. 9. He had to prove that Yahweh was the true God. 23. Give conditions that made it difficult for Prophet Elijah to stop idolatry in Israel. KCSE Paper 1 2008 3b. 1. There existed false prophets who gave false promises to the Israelites. 2. King Ahab had allowed his Phoenician wife to bring the worship of the false gods and goddesses. 3. Jezebel had brought foreign gods and goddesses to Israel. 4. There was a persecution of true prophets of God by Jezebel. 5. King Ahab had allowed the building of temple-high places for the worship of Baal. 6. The Canaanite religion had a strong influence on the Israelites. 7. The king participated in idol worship. Baalism was made official religion. 8. The idol gods could be seen touched so they appeared real. 24. State reasons that may influence some Christians to turn away from God today. KCSE Paper 1 2019 3c. 1. Lack of faith trust in God. 2. Influence from non-believers ridicule discouragement. 3. Peer pressure criticism influence fear of other people. 4. Quest for better economic power pride education greed materialism. 5. Lack of role models in society. 6. Unemployment poverty. 7. Negative influence from the mass media. 8. The emergence of different beliefs cults religious pluralism. 9. Lack of time family responsibilities work pleasure. 10. Unanswered prayers frustrations of life. 11. Permissiveness in society moral decency. 25. List forms of idolatry that threaten Christianity today. 1. Sexual immorality. 2. Drug and substance abuse. 3. Devil worship. 4. Greed for money. 5. Greed for power. 6. Witchcraft. 7. Hero worship. 8. Personality cult. 9. Addiction to certain activities esports. 26. Identify ways in which false religion is manifested in Kenya today. 1. Devil worshipping. 2. False prophecy about the end of times. 3. Human sacrifices. 4. Consulting mediums, wizards etc. 5. People claiming to be God's prophets. 6. Selling of anointing oil water for a cure. 7. The emergence of cults. 8. Commercializing spiritual gifts. 27. State the roles a Christian can play in the restoration of true worship. 1. Being role models to others. 2. Praying to God to stamp out evil in society. 3. Preaching against evils that exist in their society. 4. Reporting criminals to the relevant authorities. 5. Rehabilitating hardcore criminals. 6. Use of media to enlighten people on the consequences of evil. 7. Providing guidance and counseling to their community. 8. By creating jobs for the unemployed to minimize idleness. 28. Outline ways in which Christians enhance true worship of God today. 1. Praying for God's guidance. 2. Reading the Bible. 3. Living exemplary lives. 4. Giving tithes and offerings. 5. Repenting and forgiving one another. 6. Attending Sunday services. 7. Condemning false religions. 8. Carrying out worship within the legal framework. 9. Seeking guidance and counseling from church leaders on how to worship. 29. Outline reasons why Elijah faced danger and hostility as a prophet of God. 1. He foretold a 3.5 years drought that caused suffering to the people. 2. He was one of the prophets who were being persecuted by Jezebel. 3. Many false prophets promoted Baalism and enjoyed state protection. 4. His action of killing the prophets of Baal annoyed Jezebel, who sought to kill him. 5. Elijah made himself an enemy of the king by calling him the troublemaker of Israel. 6. The Israelites had abandoned the worship of Yahweh and were not ready to change. 7. Elijah passed harsh judgment on the house of Ahab, and this annoyed Ahab and Jezebel. 8. Elijah hid in the wilderness, where he was in danger of wild animals and hostile weather conditions. 9. His failure to fight idolatry completely. 30. State the problems the church leaders in Kenya face when carrying out their work. KCSE Paper 1 2012 3C. 1. They receive threats from their opponents. 2. They lack financial assistance. 3. There is a lack of cooperation from the church members. 4. There is rivalry among the leaders themselves. 5. They may not be good role models hypocrisy. 6. They may suffer from long separation from families. 7. There is a misinterpretation of biblical theology from different sources science. 8. And technology. 9. Greed for things property. 10. They may be posted to a hostile working environment. 11. There is political interference in their work. 12. They may lack adequate skills for carrying out their work. 13. Permissiveness corruption mass media. 14. Rejection. 31. Identify the forms of idolatry today. 1. Witchcraft and divination. 2. Devil worshipping. 3. Love of worldly pleasure. 4. Search for status. 5. Praising heroes and celebrities. 6. Greed for money, power, wealth, etc. 7. A desire for power, economic prosperity, political, etc. 8. Overdependence on material wealth. 32. Why is Elijah considered a true prophet of God? 1. He raised the child of the widow of Zarephath. 2. He prophesied 3.5 years of drought, and it came to be. 3. He prayed to Yahweh and the drought ended. 4. He prayed and Yahweh brought fire to consume his sacrifice at Mt. Carmel contest. 5. He challenged the prophets of Baal. 6. He stood for Yahweh all through his life, even when he was persecuted. 7. God revealed to him the wicked plans of King Ahab and Jezebel of killing him. 8. Elijah performed miracles to help the poor widow who sheltered him. 9. God sent ravens to feed him while he was hiding in the wilderness. 10. He upheld the worship of the true God of Israel. 33. Identify expressions of syncretism in Israel at the time of Prophet Elijah. 1. Former places of worship for the Canaanite gods were turned into places of worship for Yahweh. 2. The Canaanite agricultural calendar was adopted by Israel for the timing of the pilgrimage festival. 3. Names of Canaanite gods were also used for Yahweh, e.g. 4. Parents began naming their children after Baal. 5. The Canaanite sacrificial system was incorporated into Israelite worship. 6. The Israelites practiced temple prostitution. 7. The Israelites offered human sacrifices to the Canaanite gods. 8. The Israelites placed idols symbols of Canaanite gods in places of worship for Yahweh. 34. State the relevance of Elijah's prophetic mission to Christian today. Lessons Christians learn from the ministry of Prophet Elijah. KCSE Paper 1 2023 C. 1. Christians should show strong faith in God and avoid all forms of idolatry. 2. Christians should condemn all forms of corruption. 3. Christians should be honest and avoid corrupt practices. 4. Christians should be prayerful and seek God's guidance in situations that look difficult. 5. Christians should trust in God's providence and protection. 6. Christians should avoid sinful life to escape God's judgment. 7. Christians should be willing to carry out God's work despite the challenges. 8. Christians should preach and win converts to God. 9. Christians should be ready to suffer and face opposition in their work. 10. Christians should develop an intimate relationship with God. Elijah's leadership qualities. 35. Identify leadership qualities / moral values possessed by Elijah that Christians should emulate / possess. CSE Paper 1 2008 3C. 1. Obedience. 2. Courage. 3. Faith. 4. Justice. 5. Loyalty. 6. Honesty. 7. Faithfulness. 8. Responsibility. 9. Prayerfulness. 10. Respect. 36. Outline how Elijah's character led to his achievements. 1. He was obedient to God's commands. 2. He was courageous in fighting idolatry and corruption. 3. He had faith in God. 4. He was just in all he did. 5. He was loyal to God regardless of the challenges he faced. 6. He was honest to God and hence he did seek his help. 7. He was faithful to his mission as God's prophet. 8. He was responsible for his mission as God's messenger. 9. He was prayerful in his prophetic mission. 10. He respected God and the people of Israel. 37. Identify the modern forms of social injustice. 1. Murder. 2. Robbery. 3. Bribery. 4. Corruption. 5. Greedy for material / earthly things. 6. Discrimination. 7. Devil worship. 8. Violence. 9. Political instability. 10. Religious hypocrisy. 11. Cheating in business. 12. Drug abuse and substance. 13. Sexual immorality. 14. Poverty. 15. Dishonesty. 16. Victimization. 17. Misuse of public funds. 18. Grabbing of personal and public funds. 19. Forging signatures in documents. 38. Give ways through which corruption is manifested in Kenya. 1. Giving bribes to acquire employment or joining the school. 2. Discrimination of people. 3. Grabbing of public land. 4. Forging signatures in a bank. 5. Cheating in business and examinations. 6. Misappropriation of public funds. 7. Failure to pay taxes. 8. Giving handouts to the electorate during elections. 9. Use of fake documents to get employment. 39. State ways in which the church and certain individuals are fighting for social justice in modern society. 1. They pray for corrupt people to change. 2. They set a good example by avoiding corrupt practices. 3. They preach, guide, and counsel the people on the evils of corruption. 4. They share their belongings with those who do not have them. 5. The church / individuals send relief foods to victims of floods, drought, and land displacements. 6. They visit and pray for the sick, prisoners, bereaved, and depressed. 7. The church provides social services such as education, health services. 8. They pray for peace and justice in society. 9. The church provides civic education which guides Christians in electing honest leaders. 10. The church trains marriage counselors who assist Christian couples on how to fulfill their domestic obligations. 11. They care for the environment by condemning wanton felling of trees and depleting forests. Life skills. 40. Name the life skills that a Christian can use to fight corruption. KCSE Paper 1 2007 3C. 1. Critical thinking. 2. Creative thinking. 3. Decision-making. 4. Assertiveness. 5. Self-esteem. 6. Effective communication. 41. Explain the life skills that Elijah used to fight against false religion in Israel. KCSE Paper 1 2012 3B, 2016 3B. 1. Assertiveness. He told Ahab that he was the cause of trouble in Israel. 2. Creative thinking. He requested for a contest between the prophets of Baal and himself. 3. Decision-making. He killed the prophets/prophetesses of Baal. 4. Self-esteem. He was convinced that God was on his side. 5. Negotiation. Elijah asked the Israelites to choose between God and Baal. 6. Conflict resolution. Through the contest, he convinced the Israelites that Yahweh was the true God. 7. Effective communication. He explained to the people how the contest was to be carried out. 8. Self-awareness. He knew that he was the prophet of the true God. He had confidence in himself. 42. How a Christian can use life skills to reduce corruption. Give ways in which Christians fight corruption in Kenya today. KCSE Paper 1 2018 3C. 1. Pray for the corrupt people to change. 2. Act as a role model by avoiding taking part in corrupt practices. 3. Report incidences of corruption to the relevant authorities. 4. Encourage people to obey and practice the laws of the country. 5. Write books, magazines, newspapers on the negative effects of corruption and distribute them to the public. 6. Organize seminars and workshops for people to discuss solutions to end corruption and teach people about their rights. 7. Campaign for better salaries for civil servants. 8. Participate in the formulation of just laws of the country. 9. Establish the causes of corruption through commissions of inquiry. The content in this audio file is derived from Excellence in CRE Form 1, 2, 3, and 4 revision book. To acquire the hard copy at Kenya shilling 1,000, feel free to contact Cyrus through 0720 872 582.